my name is Sacha Margerius. I started writing this book when I was 11, and 34 years later, I actually managed to finish the first two. The story came to me when I won an English prize, and I wasn't very good at English, but I won the prize. I think the teacher felt sorry for me. And
motivator. She was a motivator.
Anyway, I was given a volume of The Hobbit, and as soon as I started reading that, it opened up a whole new world.
Yes.
And then in period, I don't know if it was before or afterwards, I can't remember now, I read Redwall by Brian Jakes, and my 11-year-old mind kind of merged The Lord of the Rings and Redwall into this story. And 34 years later, I actually got that. I always had it in my head, so I built the world up for 30 years.
So let them know that the characters, for who doesn't know the Redwall series, the characters are not human. They are anthropomorphic characters. So the main character is
The main character is a vole. The easiest way to describe it is a kind of Lord of the Rings with rats. Now, the interesting thing is that book one represents what I, as an 11-year-old, that's where I got to in my mind. I built the story up, and I couldn't go any further. I didn't. And then book two is actually my 40-plus-year-old kind of finishing the story. Obviously, there's more. These are only the first two books in the saga, which will be 5 books, and then it might continue with that. But because you got the 11-year-old in book one, and then the elder version of me in book two. Already, because book one and two are kind of one story, it comes to a conclusion of sorts. But then book three is a much bigger book. Because these are quite short books, as you can see. Book three the world will really expand and
I said it already.
It's an epic. I'm on chapter 24 of the third book at the moment, in the first draft, and I reread what I've written so far, and I was quite excited. So if I can manage to finish it properly, then it's going to be pretty epic.
So we have man,
which is the land, the world they live in. As I was saying, I've built that up in my mind for many years. Slightly unusual, this book, in the sense that it's more, the world existed before, and then I'm writing a small bit of it, a small story within that world, rather than writing a story and then having to invent the world as I write.
Yeah.
Slightly different.
Where did your inspiration for the main character came from?
Well, the story starts quite small, and then as you read on, it widens much more. So the kind of, the main story is about this young vole who's looking for her father, who gets abducted by the blue rat. So that's the kind of the small story. And then the bigger story is this wizard and his companion, 3 warriors, and they're looking for a stone which contains a secret, which they don't want the baddie, who's the blue rat. Queen, who's the main character looking for her father, kind of gets involved in this bigger story while she's looking for her father, and goes on this big quest. Then as the story goes ahead, you start learning in book 2, you kind of learn what the secret is that they're looking for, and you suddenly realize why it's so important, so vital that they beat the enemy to it. And then the story will expand. It's a big war between mice and rats, and I like books where you have a main story, but then you have a lot of background that you don't get. There's always more to learn. Even if you read it once, you might want to read it again and again.
To pick
up all. And the main character was actually a mistake. In the first draft, she was just a secondary character. My editor, when he read it, he said he thought she was the best one. Then I pivoted and I rewrote the whole story and made her the main character.
What I like, she has a lot to learn and a lot to grow. So that is very interesting to follow her journey. But she's not the only one that has doubts. I like that your characters are not like, this is my path and I'm not going to stray from it.
What I wanted to do with the characters is slightly go away from the kind of heroic trope. Even the baddies, they all have their weaknesses. They all make mistakes as they go along. Even the wizard, who's, usually the wizard is the one who knows what's going on. He's bumbling his way through and making mistakes and kind of correcting himself and second guessing himself, come to the right conclusion. Obviously it's a fantasy story, but I want it to be realistic in the sense that when someone makes a mistake, it's not always fairy tale. Sometimes you make a mistake and you pay for it.
Yes, consequences. Yes.
Without trying to lecture the reader, I try to make it slightly deeper in terms of the human condition, how to live your life, how to cope in difficult situations. But it wasn't intended because I'm writing at an older age, live the life. I suppose that came through. What I wanted, until you turn it into a product, if you just think about something forever, but don't turn it as a form of madness, take what I had been thinking, turn it into something that other people can enjoy. And
why now?
I kept procrastinating. As I said, my 11-year-old mind got so far in the story, and then I hadn't managed to get any further. And I did attempt to write it over the years and failed every time. But I always said to myself jokingly, if I ever ended up in prison, then it would be a good time to write it. But then COVID happened, and we were in lockdown. Maybe this is a sign. I started writing it, and I never thought for a minute I'd ever finish it. Every day, and then. It seemed forever, and then one day I wrote the end. I literally could not believe I'd actually managed to finish it. And now I've got into the habit of writing every day, at least. I say to myself, I have to write at least one sentence every day, whatever happens. Every night before I go to I write a sentence or two sentences or a paragraph or two paragraphs. It's amazing how repetition, you do it for long enough, suddenly you have a book.
I want to ask you about the cover. Come to me, and did you have any input?
Yeah, so the covers were designed with Tom Sanderson, who has he's really done some big books, like he's worked with Philip Pullman. I love history, so I wanted to have that kind of historical feel to it. But I also, I don't know if you know the Bio Tapestry, which is this medieval, the one, it's a medieval tapestry showing the conquest of England by William the Conqueror. So I wanted, as you can see, it's done as a kind of tapestry.
Yes.
I wanted that kind of historical feel to it, even though they are animals. I invented this whole world, it's a kind of history of one small part of that world, which I'm writing. One small event within that world. Slightly different to your usual children's book covers, but I quite like classic look.
I have the paperback. The author is showing the hardcover, which is very, very fine, high quality.
But my message to anyone who wants to write a book but is not a writer like me, like what I had to go through, my message is if I manage to write these, then you will definitely be able to write your book. So don't be discouraged. I don't know how I wrote these. I really don't. If there's any procrastinators out there, you can do it. Some people are very disciplined. I once tried to write 4 hours a day, 2 hours, I'm going to have a break. I did that for 17 days in a row. And then I was going to write one chapter a day for 4 hours. And I got to chapter 17, and then I just crumbled. Time around, what I said to myself is, you've got to know yourself. I'm a very indisciplined and lazy kind of person. That's my character. So I'm going to write it in an indisciplined and lazy way. And, I'll set myself a very low target, one sentence a day, and write it in front of the TV, write it in bed, write it wherever. Once you know yourself, write around your character rather than force yourself. The third book will probably be as long as both of these books put together. I've already planned the fourth book and the fifth book, and they're going to be pretty epic.
Do you identify yourself as one of the characters in this series?
I think all of the characters are taken from part of myself. Yeah, I do identify, I think some of the characters are as I would like to be, but I'm not. Selegis, who is the kind of reluctant warrior, not the great. He's he takes everything with a joke and kind of tries to get through situations with humor, but he's hating it at the same time. I think he could be quite similar to me. But they all have parts of me, even the baddie. I mean, I think it's inevitable that parts of your character end up in the wisdom of the wizard, which is a very flawed wisdom, or very, shall we say, not very certain wisdom. That reflects my character as well, because I'm always questioning. I don't have very strong opinions. I'm always questioning, and I think the wizard shows that kind of aspect, rather than being all-knowing and all-seeing.
Okay, I'm going to talk about right here. Bean is a character that is thrown into this story, caught by surprise, and then we are kind of joining her in a journey, and we are growing with her. But Ratia is super cool without spoilers.
Ratia is a grey rat, and the grey rats are very famous for being great warriors and swords rats, the grey rat. And Ratia she's kind of the opposite to Bean, because Bean starts the story as very inexperienced, very naive, and kind of she needs the help of all her friends to get her through all the trials of the quest. But I think at each step she kind of absorbed up and becomes, as the story goes along, she grows. Ratia, on the other hand, is like beautiful ratess who great at sword fighting. Everything that Bean would love to be. Ratia saves Bean's life. She really helps Bean through. And I shall say no more because I don't want.
Yes, no spoilers.
It's definitely a relationship that is key to the book.
So what about the magic system?
The magic system is basically divided into warlocks and the wizards. And the warlock were mice or rats that used to be blacksmith originally, and they create implements of power. Whereas the wizards used to be thinkers or philosophers, and they therefore their power is in the mind. They can travel the valley mind. And the wizard's toolkit is imagination, recollection, and calculation. So they can go back into their recollections and relive them, or they can use their imagination to create new realities in their head if they need to conjure up past souls, for example. Or they can calculate the future by building these castles in their minds and kind of working out what bits need reinforcing, what they have to do. It's a rough science, but they can do that. Whereas the warlocks, they create implements of power. There's a sword, a very important sword in the book, which is made by the warlock. It has special power. Not even the people using that sword quite know yet what that is, but it's almost as if the steel has its own soul. And the wizards and the warlock don't share their knowledge. Those two branches of magic have kind of gone their separate ways. And in the middle, you have the lawmongers, and they kind of have picked up the scraps from these two schools of thought. They can do two pillars of the law are infiltration, where they can go into objects, and extraction is where they can then extract power from within these innate objects. They go in and read the inside of the stone they're in. That's called infiltration, when you can take an object and go inside it and find what memories it has. So these are kind of the basic law.
Okay, I want to say something for the author. Although you are listening to this and seems like, oh, there's a lot to learn, the author is nice to us as readers because he gives us all of this information in a very subtle way. It's not exposition. We just take it in the middle of the action and then in the middle of these adventures. So it's all spread, and we get it at the end of the book. We get the gist of all without having those chapters that are very heavy saying, oh, this is what's going to happen now, and this is what this and this and this and this. Even when there is a little bit of exposition, it's appropriate. It's very good for the scene, and it doesn't tire us. Actually, we just want to know, oh, wait, is that a thing? Because he has a lot of humor. Example with the wizard, when he says, oh, this was just right in front of my nose, and I did not know. So it's very easy and fast to read. I kind of devour the books. One of those that you go back.
It's interesting you say that about the exposition. When I wrote the first draft, obviously I was a new writer. I didn't really know the tricks of the trade. and my editor, John Farrell, who worked with Ian Bang, the famous sci-fi author, and he kept going, too much exposition. I had to really learn to take all the information I wanted to give. I had to pare it back a little bit in there, not to tire the reader. Another comment he always had was, get on with it. So whenever the story started slowing down, get on with it.
A lot happens. Yeah. It's exciting.
Well, I don't know about you, but I really love a book where I can just open it up at a random page and read one paragraph, and that one paragraph is a lot of information. Obviously, this is no name of the rose, but when you just open a random paragraph there, it's so full of rich detail and information that you want to delve.
Yes. And he grabs this.
When I wrote it, one of my mantras is no sentence should be left behind. So every sentence should be a little story in itself, so you can dip in and out. Talking to other writers or highly amateur writers like myself, is professional writers probably find they get stuck. I've been stuck on chapter 24 for now about a month, and I keep writing a sentence a day. I'm slowly chipping away at it, but it's sometimes you just have to keep going. But I think once you trust the methodology, you know that a solution that you haven't thought of, but it will come just through the act of writing. Because your brain is working on it in your sleep. If you write a sentence the night before, your brain is trying to work out what happens next. If there's any questions, then I'll be happy to answer them.
Epic fantasy, sword and sorcery with quest, action adventure for all ages. I like to say all ages. It's not just for children, because adults who great memories of The Hobbit and of the Red Wall and other series will just jump into it with a sense of nostalgia and will love it. So I totally recommend it. How close do you feel to your characters? Is it difficult to sometimes have to give your favorite character? Oh yes, an unfortunate fate. Good one.
Well done on that question, because unfortunately, what's the saying? You have to kill your darlings.
Yes.
I don't approach it in the sense that you have to kill your darlings, but the story is written by the characters and by their decisions. Sometimes you write something and a character is in a situation, or she's in a situation, she has to make her own decision based on her character. That's how you have to write it. And then sometimes that decision will lead that character into the wrong, through the wrong door. And you have to have the strength to, accept the consequences of that decision. Otherwise, the story will have no jeopardy in it at all. So,
we're going to have a loss here. Just warning our readers.
Very difficult, but you have to just look at it. What is the most coherent consequence of what's happened? And if that means you have to kill them all, I'm afraid that's what's going to happen. Also, because what I wanted to do with this book, or in my writing, is make it, apart from making it very vivid, I want the reader to be in the book, inside that world. Just as before I started writing it, I was in that world. I want the reader to really be in there, in the forest, or in the secret passage, or in the river, or wherever they are in the battle. But I also wanted the reader to feel all the emotions going through the book. And obviously, there's joy, there's fear, there's excitement, but there's also sorrow and there's pain. You have to give the reader the full roller coaster. Yeah. It's a bit like your children, aren't they? They're like your creatures.
Oh yeah.
Even the baddies.
We don't get lost with the names of the characters, because the author is very nice to us, and adds the glossary here with all the characters' names and just a small short explanation, so we don't get lost. Do you already know how it all ends?
Yes, kind of. There's two types of writers apparently. Ones who planners, and then hide by the seat of your pants. Kind of a mixture. I try and outline the book, and then it always ends up completely different to what I've outlined. So what I want to do is, while I'm writing, is allow the story to kind of form itself. And the reason I give myself a plan is just so I know roughly where the story is heading. If I get lost, I can always get back to that outline. And there's plenty of times where you do get lost. So at least you've got your outline to fall back on, and you go, okay, I'll just write what I planned, and then the story will veer off again. I do have a rough idea how it ends, but the ending might be completely different to what I've thought. There's no last chapter written.
Congratulations. Yes, congratulations. The series is so much fun, and I hope everyone gets a copy soon and start reading it. It's available on